The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'll ask Jeff, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight we're going to begin with some presentations, and I'm going to go to the podium. Good evening. The first proclamation that we're going to do tonight is for Jeff Apuzzo. And excuse me, I'm honored to be here tonight to present Jeff Apuzzo with a proclamation and thank him for the time and the energies that he's given to the town of Farmington. You'll hear in a minute when I read the proclamation that Jeff was involved in a variety of committees and activities in town government over the last 20 years. But I'd like to highlight a few to begin with. Jeff, do you want to come down? We need a little gate here to hop instead of I'm not hopping over it. Jeff began as a member of the TPZ as an alternate in 1993. He then got involved with the Economic Development Commission, which he was a member of for 17 years, and which he also chaired. It was during Jeff's tenure on the commission that he hired a director, Courtney Hendrickson, and later hired Rose Ponte, who was he in the committee, who we are fortunate to have today as our director. The EDC and its director did wonderful things for the town of Farmington, and we thank Jeff for your leadership on that commission. And the few comments, we did not have an economic development director before that. It was discussed in the town and whether we should or shouldn't, and then they decided that that would happen, and we had an economic development director hired, and I think that the town knows clearly that that direction of hiring the director and the commission, what they've done for the town in those years is just amazing. Jeff was also a member and chaired the retirement board. It was because of his leadership that the revisions in the pension plan took place. The town of Farmington took steps to fund the plan properly when, as we know, so many towns put it off and don't step up to the plate. Farmington made that an important decision to fund the pension plans and do it right. And we're proud to say that we did, and the commission did. My comments wouldn't be complete without a mention of the cell tower on Brickyard Road. I'm sure you all remember when we went to the court over this. We were delighted when the court had decided in our favor not to build the training facility cell tower on Brickyard Road. Jeff was at the court that day with many other residents and excuse me, had been quite vocal about his opposition to the tower. And we spoke after that about how it was like a 60s protest at the court. It was a fun time, I think. Tonight, the Farmington Gateway Committee will present a plan moving us into the future with development. Because of Jeff's vision and strong voice, many Farmington residents, nearly 500, were engaged in a process to share their thoughts and concerns and to formulate a plan for our community. There's much more to come with the Gateway Committee, and we look forward to that and what's going to happen in town. Thanks, Jeff. Jeff was a member of the town council for 2 years, serving as vice chair. Jeff was always looking at the detail of documents to make sure Farmington's interest was clear and well represented, whether a contract or an agreement in or out of town. On behalf of the council and the residents, we thank you for your service and for making a difference in Farmington. And now I'll read the proclamation. Whereas Jeffrey P. Apuzzo has served on the Farmington Town Council as vice chair from 2014 to 2016. And whereas Jeffrey P. Apuzzo has served as an alternate on the Town Planning and Zoning Commission from 1993 to 97. And whereas Jeffrey P. Apuzzo has served on the Economic Development Commission from 1999 to 2016, as chair from 2005 to 2009, and from 2011 to 2013, and as vice chair from 1999 to 2005. And whereas Jeffrey P. Apuzzo has served as chairman of the Retirement Board, and under his leadership, the board revised the assumptions under which the pension plan was valued, which resulted in the plan being put on a more financially stable basis. Whereas Jeffrey P. Apuzzo has served the town of Farmington as liaison to the Economic Development Commission, Housing Authority, and the Farmington Library Board. And whereas Jeffrey P. Apuzzo, through his vision, leadership, and involvement in the Farmington Gateway Committee, was instrumental in providing a roadmap for the continued success of the town's future. And whereas Jeffrey P. Apuzzo has always maintained a focus on the public good and acted to protect the public interest over private interests, while donating countless hours of time, energy, and personal commitment to better our community and enrich the lives of the residents of the town of Farmington. Now, therefore, the Farmington Town Council hereby commends Council Member Jeffrey Apuzzo for his excellent work on behalf of the community, and we hereby thank him for his selfless dedication and immeasurable contributions and commitment to the town of Farmington and its residents. The Farmington Town Council hereby extends to Jeff and his wife Talia its best wishes on their future endeavors. Dated this 8th day of December 2015 at Farmington, Connecticut. Nancy Nickerson, Chair of the Farmington Town Council.
I'd
Wait,
like to...
before you say
Okay.
anything,
All right.
we have a proclamation. You want to read it, Kathy? Okay. We have a proclamation from the state of Connecticut. And this is from the General Assembly, the official citation introduced by Representative Mike D'Amico of the 21st District, Representative Brian Becker, the 19th District, Senator Beth Bai, the 5th District, Senator Terry B. Gerentano, the 6th District. Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to Jeffrey P. Apuzzo in recognition of excuse me, of your years of dedicated service to the Farmington Town Council. Your hard work on their behalf has earned you the gratitude of the residents of Farmington. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. Given this 8th day of December 2015 at the State Capitol, Hartford, Connecticut, by Martin M. Looney, President Pro Tem, Speaker of the House. Denise Merrill, Secretary of the State. Congratulations on this as well.
A couple of very brief words. First, Nancy, I can't tell you how much, stay here, how much I appreciate having served under your leadership on the town council. You're a consensus builder, and you make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be heard. Almost, I think, at sometimes, perhaps, maybe with me to a fault, okay? But I think I want to tell you that the opportunity to make oneself heard is very important. More to the point, Nancy, you and all of my colleagues on the town council, and I think this is what separates Farmington from other towns, we've been blessed with leadership at the chair level and at the council level from both parties by people who have a genuine interest in serving the town of Farmington and serving the public good, as opposed to doing something for their own self-interests. And I want to thank my colleagues on the town council for their service to the town and their selfless dedication to public service for the last 2 years. We're blessed with a fine town manager, perhaps the finest in the state of Connecticut as far as I'm concerned, Kathy Egan. That also sets Farmington apart. And I want to thank Kathy and her staff for her leadership. Mary Grace, we haven't always agreed, but we shouldn't, okay? You are an advocate. You are an advocate for the Board of Ed and for the students of the town of Farmington. And if you and I agreed on everything, you wouldn't have done your job. You are a true leader, and I want to thank you for your years of service as well. Thank you, everyone, but most importantly, I thank the voters of Farmington for allowing me the opportunity to serve the town for the past 2 years. Thank you.
We have another proclamation tonight. And Mary Grace, could I ask you to come up, please?
Most important.
I attended, as many other town council members did, a Board of Education reception prior to the meeting on November 23rd to honor Mary Grace for 25 years of service. And I thought it was important that we tonight recognize Mary Grace at our town council meeting as well. And I'm going to read the proclamation in a minute, but I want to give you a little bit of history. Not all the history that I did at the recognition, it was longer, but a few things I do want to make you aware of. Mary Grace and I began our careers as elected officials together 25 years ago on the Board of Education. We were both first elected in 1991 to the Board of Education. Prior to that, we were involved in our PTOs, Mary Grace at West District School with her children and myself at East Farms, and we attended Board of Ed meetings. And believe me, the Board of Education and the superintendent knew who we were before we were elected to the office of the Board of Education. We both served as members, and we both served as the chair of the Board of Education. We served many years together and worked together. We were very fortunate to enjoy the moments of recognition of our schools with blue ribbon schools and national and local recognition. So we were very fortunate. In the last 25 years, the Board of Education has addressed many serious and fun issues. Tough budget years, better budget years. Many building committees, additions, redistricting, swimming pool committees again and again. A technology committee that began many, many years ago as a 3-year plan. And as Mary Grace and I went through the years, it became a 10-year plan, and then it just became a plan that continued. And then we had a calendar committee and calendar issues, which continue all through the years. But this is the one story I'm going to share with you that I think is kind of fun. That when Mary Grace and I were first on the Board of Education, we were at a meeting, and it was on the agenda was the calendar, just to pass it. Nothing extraordinary, very ordinary. And one of the Board of Education members decided that they would discuss a March vacation and thought that that would be a very good option. And by the time we were ready to vote on the motion, everyone thought that sounded really good. And this was the first time we'd ever heard of it. Well, we all voted for that, for the March vacation. And the next day, our phones rang off the hook. And at the next Board of Education meeting, there were many people that came and told us what we should be doing, and we rescinded the vote and went back to February and April. But I think it was probably one of the most tense, but the most fun kinds of things happening to us. And just a really neat thing that happened so many years ago, but a quick vote. I think it was the quickest I've ever rescinded a vote in our lives. So, but that said, the Farmington school system had stood out as one of the top in the state for many years and also was recognized nationally, as I said, for excellent schools. Farmington High School was just recognized as one of the best in the state, number 11, just, I believe it was last week or a couple weeks ago. Mary Grace has been part of this legacy of the Farmington schools. For the past 25 years, she's been a member of the Board of Education, but also a leader in the school system as its chairman. The Farmington community owes a great deal to Mary Grace for giving her time, her energy, and caring for the families of our community. Mary Grace, we thank you for all you've done in 25 years, and I thank you on behalf of the Town Council and the residents of Farmington. And now I'd like to read you have the proclamation. No. Whereas Mary Grace Reed has served on the Farmington Board of Education as a member from 1991 to 2016, and as chair from 1993 to 1995, and from 2006 to 2016. And whereas Mary Grace Reed has served on the Farmington Board of Education as liaison to the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, the Capital Region Education Council. And whereas Mary Grace Reed served the town of Farmington as a member of various committees, including the Alma Bailey Taylor Foundation Scholarship Trust Committee, Farmington Joint Green Efforts Committee, the Negotiations Committee, Facilities Committee, Transportation Committee, Curriculum Committee, Community Relations Committee, Policy Committee, Judson Lane Building Committee. And whereas Mary Grace Reed served in a leadership role in the Joint Town of Farmington and Board of Education Green Efforts Committee, which accomplished a town-wide $3,700,000 energy performance contract that touched all 7 schools and 16 municipal buildings, allowing for capital investment and energy conservation measures in our most important facilities with no new tax dollars, as well as receiving over $700,000 in incentives from Connecticut Light and Power, Connecticut Natural Gas, to further green effort initiatives to the town of Farmington. And whereas Mary Grace Reed has always maintained a focus on the public good and acted to protect the public interest over private interests while donating countless hours of time, energy, and personal commitment to better our community and enrich the lives of the residents of the town of Farmington. Now, therefore, the Farmington Town Council hereby commends Board of Education Chair Mary Grace Reed for her excellent work on behalf of the community, and we hereby thank her for her selfless dedication and immeasurable contributions and commitment to the town of Farmington and its residents. The Farmington Town Council hereby extends to Mary Grace and her husband Jack its best wishes on their future endeavors. Dated this 23rd day of November 2015 at Farmington, Connecticut. Nancy Nickerson, Chair of the Farmington Town Council. I'm sure not.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you so very much. And especially, it's especially nice to have Nancy be in this particular position at this particular time, based on the fact that we really did start together, and not to date us, but we actually started much before the 25 years. As Paula, myself, Nancy, and Jean Barron know, we were what Jean referred to as Board of Education groupies, and it is really a true story. We, for 3 years, were the representatives. We were in 4 different elementary schools, and at the time there was a role called Board of Education Rep, and we, if you know these 4 women, we take our role seriously. And so we each found ourselves that fateful year, 3 years before when Nancy and I ran, as the Board of Education Reps from Wallace West Districts, Wallace West District Union, and East Farms. And we were, I bet you, together collectively, we didn't miss 5 meetings collectively in those 3 years. So when Nancy and I got on the Board of Education, we had 3 years of sitting in the audience, listening to every meeting and hearing everything. So we were ready to get to work, weren't we, Nancy? We were rolling. And Paul, you joined us 2 years after? Jean said, yeah, I think it was just because only 2 people could run the first time, and then we had to wait for the next 2. So, you know, really collectively, we have 28 years that we have spent. I don't care if you're at the council or at the board, Nancy, schools are always at the central focus of your heart. So I want to tell the council how much I've appreciated the relationship the Board of Education and the Town Council have had together. You're representing all of your colleagues before you, and so if you would accept the thanks and the gratitude, and particularly through the last 10 years that I've been chair, and I had the opportunity to work with Nancy, Mike Clark, and Jeff Hogan. I believe we've really forged an excellent relationship, and town gown relationship is just critical because the community have to know that they can trust that. And Jeff, I love what you said because it was exactly what I was going to say, and it means so much to me that it would come from you this evening as well. The town and the board are not always going to agree. What they have to work really hard at is not being disagreeable with one another. But as B. Stockwell told us way early on, we have different roles. Do you remember that? We were trained from the best, B. Stockwell. And she said that was something that, 2 things I remember her saying to us. 1, you have very different roles from the town council. And you need to remember that. And you need to do your role as best you can And remember, they're going to do their role as best as they can. And the second was, she said, always respect the vote of the electorate. We had lost that faithful school, that first one, and it was heartbreaking. And we were in Bee's house, we were crying, literally crying. And she came up to us and she said, basically sort of, put your big girl pants on, girls. And she said, the electorate has spoken. And that's the foundation that we're based upon. And you have got to learn to accept the voice of the public when they vote. And those were two rules that I never forgot. So Jeff, thank you for that, and I agree. I want to say that Nancy just did such an amazing job at my reception, because the amount of work that it took for her, you heard only a portion of it, but I know the research you put in it, and it was very, very gracious for you to do that. And I want to share one story with you. There's lots of stories that we have, but this is not a Board of Education story, but it's a story that I think the only person up there who knows is John Vibert, and very few people in the community know this. And I was hoping I'd get a chance to share this. So when we lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we were transferred here, my husband got a job here. And so what do? The first thing you do is you call your mother, right? And I'm from upstate New York, a little city called Cohoes. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, Jack and I are moving closer, coming from Ann Arbor back home, essentially. I said, Jack and I are moving. I said, and she said, where are you moving to? And I said, Connecticut. And she said, where in Connecticut? And I said, oh, you've never heard of it? It's a little town called Farmington. And my mother said, oh, I know Farmington. When your father got home from the Marines in 1955, he had just been, gotten out of service, and she said there was a huge flood there, and your father got called to Farmington, Connecticut, to come and help. And they were calling the able-bodied men who were just released and knew how to respond to emergencies. And John, I think I shared this with you a while ago. And she said, and so your father got to Farmington, Connecticut before you did, Mary Grace. So I always loved the fact that my dad came and my dad was here. And my mom said, they said it was going to be a few weeks, and it was a lot longer than a few weeks. I said, it was a pretty bad flood, Mom. So I wanted to share that and say that that's a part of my history that I rarely have ever shared, but that God bless my dad. I wish that he could know that today. So I want to thank the public for the trust that they put in me. It's one thing to trust to give your trust to a community when it's related to intangibles, but when you put your trust in someone for 25 years with the most precious thing in your life, and that is your children, there is no greater public trust. I have found every day of this volunteer position to be the most rewarding, other than being a wife and a mother, than anyone could ever have. It has changed me and grown me, and I thank the people of the community who have let me into their lives and into their stories and called upon me when they are in need. And I am sad that I won't be able to respond in the future, but I want you to know that I will hold the past and every one of your stories and every one of you very, very close to my heart. It has been an honor, and with all that I have and all that I am, thank you, Farmington, for allowing me 25 years of service, and God bless.
You have the hat.
Finally.
And you get to pick the color.
Give Mary Grace the option.
Well, we've got two of each,
Oh,
so.
okay.
Yeah, hey,
All right.
I'm on top of it
Thank
here.
you. You are right. Yeah. So I don't have to take back my comments then.
Yeah.
All right.
Back upstairs to board orientation.
Are we going to do the presentation first, or are we going to public comment?
We're going to do the presentation.
Okay.
If they have comment on it.
Next, we have the presentation of the Farmington Gateway Committee, and I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Nancy.
Erica, could you just lower the lights just a little bit? You need me to show you the overhead.
Just the button, I guess,
Yeah.
to click it, right?
Yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure, let's see how we do here. Let's see if it, yeah, that's, so it's just, and then I think you get,
Left click.
yeah, left
Yeah,
left
okay.
click, that's it. Okay.
Thanks.
That's better.
Good. Thank you, Erica. For the record, Jeff Opuzzo, Chair of the Farmington Gateway Committee. Bill Warner and I are going to make a presentation to you tonight, and this is the report of the Gateway Committee, and later on in the meeting you'll be voting to accept or reject the report. First, I want to say that I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude serving on this committee because I think the response was just so overwhelmingly positive from our residents. As you will recall, approximately a year and a half ago, the town council established a charge to form the Gateway Committee, and through that charge, the committee was comprised of Peter Bagdigian, a representative from the Planning and Zoning Commission, Augusto Russell, representative and chair from the Economic Development Commission, Amy Sufrandini, a town council member, and myself as chair. So I just want to stop right here and thank all of my my fellow members on this commission for their hard work. I had a great time working with each and every one of you. You were also very invested in this process, and I think your hard work really reflects in the outcome that we've achieved tonight. While we worked hard, no one worked harder than our staff. Bill Warner, our Planning and Zoning Director, put in countless hours. And really, he and I think Rose Ponte, our Economic Development Director, and Kathy Egan, our Town Manager, were really the driving force behind this. I mean, the members of this committee came up with the ideas, but the hard work, the nuts and bolts of this really came from staff. And we really owe you a debt of gratitude, because without your work, this report and where we came, where we are now would never have been accomplished. In addition to our staff, we had great public participation from two key interest groups. The first is Preservation Now, whose mission really is for historic preservation in our town, and frankly, that's an admirable goal since Farmington is a historic and progressive town. We also worked very closely and partnered with the Human Relations Commission to make sure that whatever is done in the Gateway or other areas of town serves the needs of our handicapped community. So just as a reminder, we formed the Private Future Land Initiative Committee on April 7th of 2014 by a charge of this council. Our charge as a committee was to work with residents, property owners, staff, and consultants to study and develop conceptual plans on areas of town that had development potential. And the first few meetings that we had were really centered around prioritizing or really identifying areas that had development potential and then prioritizing those areas. And we identified 8 areas of town that had development potential, and then our committee determined that the Farmington Village Gateway would be the first area to study. We realized, again, with the help of Bill Warner, who had been through this process before in Middletown, that the cornerstone of all successful plans is a strong public participation component. We also retained groups of highly experienced planners, architects, and landscape architects to facilitate the discussion. We collaborated with the Human Relations Commission and Preservation Now to ensure success. And we did an extensive marketing campaign to promote the event, including mailing of postcards in every household in town. Let me just stop here for a minute. The RFP process that we went through for what's called Phase 1, which is really embodied in this report, was really based on, its success was really based on a public participation component. And I remember when we were leading up to this, there was a lot of angst on our committee because we were wondering, well, what kind of turnout are we going to get? And as you'll see in the next slide, we had a phenomenal turnout. And the experience of Bill Warner, who had been through this process before, really guided us with respect to the RFP And really, we were able to hone in on exactly the type of experts that we needed to make this public process an overwhelming success. And Bill, I want to thank you for your expertise on that. On the extensive marketing campaign, I really owe an enormous amount of thanks to Kathy Egan, who put the resources and the efforts behind the marketing of this. Rose Ponte, you were phenomenal in getting the word out, as you were, Bill, and it was the dissemination of these meetings to every constituency in town, from church groups to various charitable organizations, anybody and everybody that you could contact, we did. And I think the turnout at the meetings reflected that hard work. And none of this could have been possible without the assistance of Miss Porter's school in allowing us to host these meetings, which was really one of the only venues in the first district which could accommodate the number of people that turned out. So a special thanks to Miss Porter's. We had 3 consecutive days of meetings, March 26th, 27th, and 28th. We met on Thursday, Thursday, March 26th in the evening. On the 27th during the day, we did a walking tour, and then we buttressed those meetings with a Saturday morning meeting on the 28th, so we could maximize the number of people who could turn out who might have had conflicting work schedules. On the 26th, we had our consultants do what's called the SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the Gateway area. And it was based upon that SWOT analysis that kind of fostered the discussion about what town residents really wanted to see in this area. And then on the 27th, we had a walking tour. And at this point, we had 200 people for the first meeting, 60 people during the day on a Friday, which is just phenomenal, but the 200 speaks for itself. And then after that, we were wondering whether there was anybody left to participate, and lo and behold, another 150 people showed up on March 28th, where we did this model building exercise, which Bill will talk about a little bit more. And then to top it off, we had our final presentation on September 27th, and we had 120 people show up for that. And what I would say, the consistent theme through all 4 of these meetings was engagement, an intense discussion, and a real investment by our residents who, make no mistake about it, really care about the development in our town. We had a broad section of the community participate. We had developers, we had historic preservation people, we had ordinary citizens with no agenda. We had people bringing up great ideas. We were even getting great ideas at the September 17th meeting that we hadn't heard before. And as this process moves forward, I'm sure we're going to hear more ideas. Now, it's quite fitting for me to turn it over to Bill Warner at this point to go into the details and to do the heavy lifting with respect to this report, because Bill and the town staff have been doing the heavy lifting on this all along. So, Bill, I'd welcome you to come up and talk about the specifics of what we accomplished.
Thank you, Jeff, and happy holidays to everybody. My job tonight is to explain the study area, explain why this study area needs to be carefully planned, more so than other areas of town, explain the results of the workshops, and also where we go from here. The study area, as you can see on the map, is pretty much from Mountain Spring Road, down Farmington Avenue, all the way to the river. It includes the area, the Parsons property, the brick walk shops, going down the former Chuck's Steakhouse area, Elm Tree Inn, the Country Club, all the way down to the Farmington Inn and the Epicure and the 2 gas stations at the river. So that's the study area. You're all far more familiar with Farmington than I am, so I don't think you need any more detail than that. So why a plan? The top 10 reasons why we need a plan for this area. Lots of areas in Farmington, the market is very strong, the real estate market is very good in Farmington. You don't need a lot of intervention from the town. But there are certain areas that are very public areas, very visible areas, where the town needs to guide the development that occurs there. And the property owners and the developers that invest in those areas understand that because it is a public place. So the top 10 reasons why we need this area, because this is the gateway into your town. You have 28,000 cars a day driving into this area. So you want to create something that it instantly makes you think of Farmington. It can't be a generic retail center or anything like that. It has to be uniquely Farmington. So how can we make that into this area? The state DOT job creates a real opportunity to really look at this area in detail. But what we have right now, multiple small properties with multiple owners. Most properties are not in the historic district, meaning a lot of these buildings are not protected. It's a hodgepodge of uses and zoning classifications. The area is underutilized, vastly underutilized, as you can just think. You know, you have a real commercial area there, and you have a lot of vacant land. The area is highly susceptible to change. The market will be strong for new development after the state is done. Again, you have visibility, you have access, you have a lot of drive-by traffic, so there's going to be a very strong market. In this area, I'm already talking to 4 different developers that are interested in doing projects that own land there or optioning land in that area. So all of these, pretty much all of the areas that we identified originally as susceptible to change are already in play with developers. The road project is going to permanently change the area. You're literally building a road in the backs of some of these properties all the way down behind the Chuck's property and whatnot. So that's going to change the whole area. But most importantly, the Gateway does not reflect Farmington's image of charming historic buildings and high-quality new development. What it is right now is not what the image of Farmington is. And it's the most significant gateway into town, as I indicated previously. So those are the reasons why we really need to look at this area and to plan it very carefully. In terms of the workshops, on Thursday night there was the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What that was a brainstorming session with close to 200 people coming up with different ideas and breaking into smaller groups and listing ideas for the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats. Invaluable information. The report has all the lists of everything that everybody said, but it really boils down to 62 strengths, 60 weaknesses, 93 opportunities, and 49 threats that the residents of Farmington identified for this area. Again, incredibly valuable for developers, for planners, anyone looking at that area to know what the residents are thinking. For instance, the strengths. The historic character of the area, the river, Miss Porter's school, cultural institutions. The weaknesses, no sense of place, not pedestrian friendly, the various gas stations and unattractive vacant commercial buildings. The opportunities. This is one where a lot of people are going to, developers are going to look at that and try and key on some of these opportunities to tie into their developments. Making it walkable, accessible, the town green, the vacant Parsons property. What else could you do there? For instance, the river, again, was another one that was a big opportunity. 49 threats. The DOT road project. Throughout Connecticut, people are very anxious about with the DOT and when they get involved in projects. Inaction. If we do nothing, what's going to happen if we do nothing? Will we end up with another big pharmacy on the corner or some other boxed kind of store? Inappropriate development and the traffic, of course, is always identified as a big issue. The model building workshop is something that I never participated in. And what that was at Miss Porter's school, we had 14 different tables and probably 12 to 15 people at a table. And on the big table was an aerial photograph of the study area. And on that aerial photograph were styrofoam models of all the buildings that the consultants put together. So all of those buildings, and you were free to take the building off or put the building on. So if there were buildings you didn't like, you took it off and you threw it out. And then you had some other pieces of styrofoam buildings that you could put in its place. And you start to develop what this village should look like. And that was just a great event. And I always said this to the paper and everything else. Every time I was involved in any of these workshops, I've done probably a half dozen of them now, and everybody is always happy and enjoying the process and talking and debating and how they should do this and how they should do their tables. So we ended up with 14 different concepts of how this area should develop, where buildings should be. The consultant's job was to boil it down, take those 14 tables and boiling them down into 3 different concepts. They did a low-density concept, a moderate-density concept, and what they called a village-density concept, because they know if you look back in history, what was the density historically for this area. For instance, the Parsons. You see people are fronting buildings on the Parsons property. And if you look back in history, Betty Kuykendall, who provided me all kinds of information about the history of the area, showed me a map of what the Parsons property looked like. And it pretty much looked just like that village density, with buildings up along Route 4, lining Route 4. So those were the different concepts that came out of the report. The report, I know you all have it, is probably about 150 pages of information about these different concepts. The professionals, the consultants that we hired, also came up with their recommendation based on what they heard on the walk and the SWOT analysis during the model building, watching people, what they heard, and they come up with their recommendations. And the best way to see that recommendation is upstairs on the Unionville model. We now have the Farmington Center model, so it's right up there. When you leave, you could take a look at that, and that's the professional recommendation. But what Kathy Egan keeps bringing up, and the strength of the whole 3 days, and she's very, very right. Regardless of the maps and everything, there were so many common themes that came out. There was lots of agreement about what should happen there. It was really, there were not a lot of debates, or everybody had these common ideas of what it should look like. And those common ideas included, the desire to create a sense of place, that this is Farmington. And I've always said this, that when you drive around that corner, you should say, instantly, that's Farmington. And there's nothing else in the world that looks like it. I always equate it to the Sydney Opera House. You see Sydney Opera House, no matter where you see that picture, it's Sydney. There should be something that comes when you come around that corner into the Farmington Village, that that's Farmington, and everybody knows that's Farmington, Connecticut. So that's very, very important. The area should remain charming. New development should have a high-quality architecture. Adoption, this is one that we worked with Ruth Groby quite a bit with. Adoption of universal design, a place accessible to all. And what they talk about with that is that whether it's a person in a wheelchair, a mother with a baby carriage, or someone on crutches, it should work for everybody. Everybody should be able to enjoy this area. And that's a big goal of ours. Historic characteristics must be protected and expanded. Huge in Farmington. Your brand is your history, and that's what you have in Farmington. You need to protect that and enhance that. Development must be scaled appropriate to the existing buildings. Attractive streetscapes, including tree-lined streets, appropriate lighting, and pedestrian amenities. Green spaces, river access. Mixed-use developments to include shops, restaurants, and residential options. Redevelopment of incompatible structures. There were definitely incompatible structures out there that everybody agreed. I'm not going to name them. That everybody agreed that building doesn't fit and it should be changed. But really, that was the great thing about this whole event, is everybody agreed on these common themes, and that makes it very easy for designers to start to say, okay, this is what Farmington residents want. So then what we did is we heard over and over again design guidelines. There should be clear guidelines that say when a developer comes, or when this town goes out for an RFP to develop a piece of property, these are the guidelines that we want you to follow. And so the report includes a very large section. I know Amy really liked that section the most. It was a large section about design guidelines and what you consider when you're developing an area. And some of them just briefly pedestrian friendly. How is it pedestrian friendly? Historic preservation. The crosswalks, the streetscapes. How does it look? How does it work? Landscaping, very important. Public spaces. Should there be a small green, a fountain? How do we use the existing green more efficiently? Architecture, the edge along streets, accessible sidewalks, the Farmington River. Got to use the Farmington River better. Got to highlight the Farmington River rather than getting down there and looking at 2 gas stations. We need to create something that says, okay, there's the river there. There's the Farmington River. Wayfinding signs, signs that tell us where to go and how to get there. Town center landscape. So a lot of design guideline stuff, which was very, very important also. Phase 2, where we go from here. This council was gracious enough to include in the budget $50,000 for the next phase of this study. So what we need to do, as I see it, is in Phase 2, continue to work with the DOT to upgrade beyond standard improvements. Now, if we did nothing, we would get your standard wooden light poles. You would get painted crosswalks on the streets. You would get concrete curbs. You would get the standard DOT concrete retaining wall along the town green. But that's not acceptable. We want it better than that. And I give huge credit to Kathy and Russ Arnold for coming up with, for working with the DOT and saying, you know, we want something better than that. So now we know that we will be able to get granite curbs. We will be able to get the decorative light poles. We will be able to get the Unionville crosswalks in Farmington Center now. So we'll have the brick-looking crosswalks across Route 4. And all of those little things that while it's under construction, let's do it now rather than come back later and try and get it done. Make sure the necessary utilities are in place. This is one thing that I learned in Middletown. Downtown Middletown now has 45 restaurants in the downtown, and you can't have a restaurant without a gas line. And the gas line on Route 4 is in the middle of the road. So the last thing we want to do is the DOT finish their project and the gas company does nothing. And then someone comes in to develop the arsons that we want to happen, and they got to dig up the road to get the gas line. So we want to make sure that the gas is brought to the property so it's available. Just plain common sense things. The power line and the phone, if you'll notice, they're all on the opposite side of the Parsons property. We certainly don't want power lines crossing Route 4, so are we putting in the proper conduit to pull the power lines under the road so you don't see that happening, so that they're underground? That's another one that's very important to plan for. And then finally, we need to put together a package of tools and plans and drawings that say this is what we want for this area. This is what 500 residents of Farmington said what they want for this area, and we have that available so that people know and developers know this is what we're looking for. And one very, very important step in that is market analysis. Very often I hear from developers and they talk about plans that towns come up with and they roll their eyes at another town plan, and because they're not based in market reality. They're just based on, we want all retail shops here, we want this here, we want this here, and it's just a dream. It's not based in market reality. So it's important that we hire a professional marketing firm to look at the market and to say what will work in this market. I would love to be able to say the Farmington market is a great market and we don't have to worry, we build it and they're going to come here. But we have to be cognizant of the fact that we're 3 miles from one of the most successful malls in the country. We're 5 miles from an incredibly successful entertainment district in Blueback Square. So we can't create those. We can't look to compete with those. So what do we create that works in this location? And how you identify that is through market analysis. Market analysis will actually tell you what uses are going to work here, what will the market support here, but also how big the buildings have to be, what's the square footage, what size footprints do you need, and whatnot like that. So that's going to be critical to tell us where we go from there. So once we have that, then we do a traffic and parking demand analysis. The traffic analysis is going to be critical, as you all know. We have a peak hour traffic issue on Route 4 going through the study area. So we need to look at the uses that the market analysis said and say, okay, how are those going to jive with the peak hour traffic? For instance, if it said, corporate offices are great there, we should have corporate offices there. We'd have to scratch our heads and think about that and say, okay, corporate office, they have the same peak hour traffic as what's on the road now. So we need to look at that and say, okay, maybe we don't want that. Do we want, things that are specialty retail, which is not peak hour? Do we want, for instance, 55 and older housing, which is not peak hour? What types of uses are off-peak hour, which will develop very nicely there, but are not going to be a traffic issue? Parking, we need to look at parking. We can't have things that have huge parking demands, because nothing can kill an area worse than a giant parking lot. So we don't want to create a giant parking lot for that reason. Structured parking is very expensive, so we need to look at it very carefully and understand just how much parking we're going to need for those uses to work properly. So we need to do that. Phase 1 environmental site assessment, another critical one. What the DOT does is the DOT looks at a property, for instance, the Parsons property, where they're going to put a shovel. They do some environmental investigation. They don't do a full Phase 1 environmental site assessment. So we need to have that. We need to be able to tell future developers, or however the town handles the future development of the Parsons property, we need to know what the environmental is. And if we find out there are environmental issues there, the Phase 1 is the way that we can get future grants for cleanup and future assessment. So that opens the door to lots of grant money to start addressing the issues that might be on the Parsons property. Once we have all that information, then we start doing some more detailed engineering on the Parsons property and some more conceptual engineering and architecture on the adjoining properties. We want to make sure we look at this in a comprehensive way. So we look at it comprehensively. We look at the Parsons property. How should this be developed based on the market analysis, and how can it be connected to the other properties? That's critical. We look at the utilities. We look at the site grading. We look at the building placement, and all of those things that a private developer would be doing to make a development work, so that we have that, so we know this is how it works. And it's all based on what we learned from those 3 days from 500 residents in town. And then we do design guidelines for the potential uses. What should the buildings look like? How should they fit in? Will this use fit into this type of design of a building? We do architectural renderings so that we can show people this is what it's going to look like. Do you agree? After Phase 2, I'm sure we have another public presentation. Do you agree? Is this what you envision for this area? So that we start to put together that package of information that is reflective of what 500 residents wanted based on that 3-day workshop, and what we learned from other residents as we get more and more input, so that we start to design something that is uniquely Farmington and what Farmington people want. And then, once that's done and the package is done, and then we start to promote it, and we start to go forward and try and make it happen. So that's the way we envision Phase 2 working. And we have already worked out a draft RFP. We'll talk about it Thursday night at our next Gateway meeting, and hope to go forward with that, probably January and February, and we'll be moving right along. And that's all I have. I don't want to take over. If you want to open it up to questions.
I think we can open it to questions. Council questions first? Comments?
Very good plan.
So basically, what will come out of this is a set of design concepts and directions that would lead private developers into developing it in the way we'd like them to. So it'd be similar to what was put in place for Unionville, where there's village zoning regulations.
Exactly. The town, had some forethought on that. They already kind of copied the Unionville zoning regulations and created the Farmington Center zoning regulations, so they're similar. But what you're talking about in that process is exactly right. So as I see it, there is the Parsons property, where we really can guide the development of that piece, but the rest of it is private development. And that's involving planning and zoning, getting planning and zoning to adopt this plan into their plan of conservation and development that says this is what we want. So when developers come in to develop their land, for the special exception, the first thing they do is they come in and they say, okay, what do you think? I pull out the plan, I say, this is what we want, and they try to make it fit. So that when they go to planning and zoning, their planning and zoning is hearing from me, this is exactly what we want based on our plan. So that's the master plan behind it.
So, Bill, I think it's important to reiterate that within the Gateway, there are sort of two areas. One is the undeveloped area that we can really dictate and how it's developed. The rest of the area, we can put in design guidelines and zoning regulations, but that's going to be an evolutionary process. That's going to take time to develop.
It is, but as I said, it's moving kind of quickly.
Yeah.
I think for, at least around the Chucks area, we've stirred a lot of
Mhm.
interest.
Yeah.
All of those properties are in play.
Yep.
So there's stuff happening fast. But even if it happens tomorrow, we've already heard from the residents. We know what they want. We know, and I know, and we'll be able to say, these are the things that we want to see, and try and blend it all together if it works out that fast.
I just, I want to reiterate, and I feel like it needs to be reiterated what Jeff has said. You guys are phenomenal. I've been on the council, this will soon be my third term. I don't think anything I've been more excited about, and I don't think there's anything I feel like will have real lasting impact on Farmington 30, 50 years from now. And, the four of us all work hard, but for Bill and his experience and his leadership and Kathy and Rose, this wouldn't happen. It's a pleasure to be on this committee. It's a pleasure to work together. We fight sometimes and disagree, but generally I just think this is going to be phenomenal for Farmington, and I'm thrilled with all of your work and your leadership. One quick sort of follow-up. You say there's so much in the works. Every time I talk to anyone about this, they want, so when are we going to start seeing something happen? If you had to give people sort of a rough timeline, I know DOT is not done until April of 2017. So Parsons, nothing really could happen there until after that. But how would you answer the question I get all the time, and when things will start moving over there?
I think the one that's public right now was the Chuck's property, and he's made some public presentations about that. His plan is as the DOT is completing,
Okay.
he wants to be starting. So that's pretty quick. There are other ones that approval process farther down the road. That one is probably February. We'll be looking for approvals. Architects and engineers are working on that. So it's moving pretty quick. And on that comment, I want to say, I keep going back to Middletown, but that was my life for 25 years. So, we wrote the downtown plan in Middletown in 1992, and it was not a very desirable place to be when we wrote that plan. And when I heard that Jeff wasn't running again, I said to him, I said, Jeff, you should really take a lot of pride in this, because what this does is it creates legacy. It really does. This plan will create a legacy for the future, and that's the exciting part about planning, is that you really can shape the future, and you can really say, we had our hand in that. So when you're telling your grandkids, you say, look at that. So kudos to you all for really supporting planning.
Any other questions from the council? Mary?
I do. I have a question, but first I want to say I remember when Jeff was sitting here and this was just your brainchild, this was just your idea that we should be proactive about this. We shouldn't just sit around and wait for developers to come to us and plop down whatever they want without some sort of plan. And I think this is the quickest, and mind you, I come from the federal government and then the state government, but I've never seen anything work this quickly to produce actual tangible results. It's just amazing. I mean, from your vision that we should be proactive to this whole report and to an actual tangible vision, it's just amazing. So congratulations, and it's great for the future of Farmington. I just was hoping you could, again, and I know this is what John's question was, just again in plain English, who has the ownership of the development guidelines? Who owns the guidelines that are we hoping that people just follow these, or are we somehow enforcing that people are following these?
Go ahead. We've gone over this, so I know what he's going to say. So.
For instance, how it works in Unionville is we have the Unionville Center zoning. The Unionville Center zoning, and there's a Unionville Village District zoning, which is an overlay on top of that. We have the same thing in Farmington, Farmington Center and Farmington Center Village zoning. The Village District zoning by state statute is created to give zoning commissions aesthetic authority over development. So they're only in certain areas, but in every other area in town, you can't say, we don't like that door, we want you to have this kind of shutter. In Village District zoning, you can do that. So how it works in Farmington Center and in Unionville, is that when a development comes in, there is a mandatory review by the Architectural Design Review Committee, which is a committee that we have. And they do a phenomenal job. Tim Eagles is the chairman, and they do a phenomenal job helping developers and their architects change things to make them fit within the district that they're in. Because very often they come in with things that are just generic. Yeah, they look nice, they're urban-looking things, but they want it to look like Unionville or Farmington Center. So they help them shape the development that way. Developers are all over. They do, absolutely, yes, we'll do whatever you want to make it look nice, because they're going to go to planning and zoning and ask for an approval. So that's a mandatory review by the architectural review. Then they go to planning and zoning for a special permit, and the special permit includes the review by them. And by the time it gets to planning and zoning, it usually complies with exactly what we want. So that's the way it works.
Those bodies sort of will take ownership of the guidelines that this committee has adopted.
Yeah, the village district zone already has guidelines in it, but we'll be looking for more detail to supplement what we have, and then getting planning and zoning on board with them.
So Bill and the committee, we're going to talk about some various things, and then he's going to be making recommendations to the zoning department. And then they'll approve it. Yeah.
Okay, and the other question I had is when I was reading through the report, it did say about how some of these suggestions, as you talked about, could have traffic impact. So when in the process is the traffic review going to happen? After market analysis or in conjunction with market
because what market analysis is going to do is market analysis is going to identify what uses will work here. So once you know what the market says, this is what can be supported in this area. This is what the market will support. Then you say, okay, well, how are those uses going to work with the traffic that we have?
Does the budget money we have, does that go towards the traffic analysis as well?
Yes. Yep.
But there's a second review of the traffic once a proposal's made to TPZ. So then there's going to be a further check and balance on the traffic issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for that area, particularly for that area, unless the DOT project works phenomenally, for that area, I would see us doing what we did with the Charles House development, third-party review, because it is so sensitive there. But let's face it, there are certain uses that you know. I mean, I'm not proposing this, but if there was a movie theater proposed there, it would work just fine, because it's not peak hour traffic. You don't go to the movies first thing in the morning. You don't go, at 5 o'clock. So so there's uses that would fit just fine with the peak hour traffics. Other uses won't. So that's how you would do that analysis.
Thank you.
Any other comments? John?
Well, first, I just want to thank everybody involved in this committee. It was just said, Jeff, you have a legacy that will live on and on. You all worked tremendously hard, and this is a great report. It's a great vision. It's a great future for the town of Farmington. So with that being said, I was wondering, where do you see this committee going forward? Indefinitely or into perpetuity, because it's my understanding that Jeff's vision when we sat here early on in our first term was more of an overall plan for the entire town of Farmington to control development so that we didn't have a hodgepodge in certain areas, such as right out here on Route 4 and Brickyard Road, and that area and other areas in town, including the other side of town. So this committee somewhat transformed or morphed, even the name even changed, into the Gateway Committee. I forget what the name originally was.
Way too long.
Yeah, it took a couple pages of paper to, for the name. But at any rate, so I guess my question is where, right now we're definitely focused on the Gateway to Farmington, as we should be, because there's a lot there. And there's a lot to be desired there as well. Do you see the committee anytime in the near future branching out to what maybe its original purpose was, and that's an overall plan of Farmington to kind of do the same thing?
So let me just refocus you a little bit.
Yep.
It was never the charge of this committee to do an overall plan of Farmington. So what we did was we were charged to look at specific areas in town that had development potential. And in addition to that, we looked at areas which might not have had development potential, but were gateways. So they were the first thing you saw when you came north on 177 and went into Farmington, or when you came from New Britain and you entered the Five Corners, or you came right off the highway on 84, and before you even got to the gateway, what did you see? So I would say that there are really two sort of broad categories that this committee was charged to look at. First was larger parcels that had development potential, like the gateway area that we've defined, like, for example, the area on Route 4 from the Mormon Temple west to the Greenbrier property. And then in addition to that, those sort of gateway areas that really aren't development potential, but probably could use some beautification to make the Farmington statement when people come in. So as I leave the town council and this committee moves forward, it would be my hope and request for you, or to you, to continue this committee well after the gateway is finished. And for example, while the gateway evolves, this committee may want to consider a smaller project, like the area right off of 84 as you come into Farmington, and rather than seeing, you know, Jersey barriers on the right and a hodgepodge of signs in the middle, maybe some money to beautify that. Maybe there's grant money available, maybe there's not. But this committee, I would urge the council to keep this as a standing committee indefinitely. It's an important process that allows Farmington residents to be proactive as opposed to just reacting to a plan that's proposed by a developer and having to go on the defensive to something which they may not like. It gives citizens an opportunity to be invested in the character of their town. So I hope this committee continues, and there really is no reason why it shouldn't.
And just, John, to follow up, and it is mentioned in the motion, when we all first met, we listed about, I think, 7 or 8 areas that we wanted to focus on. But the gateway area that we're talking about, we sat down and decided that should be our focal point at the beginning, just because of the DOT project, because Parsons may be available for us to do something. There were so many key things and sort of a sense of urgency there.
A lot of
and you
opportunity
can't
there.
attack everything at once. So I think now, as this is sort of moving forward, probably the committee will come together again and say, is there another area that we think makes sense, and what would make sense, you know, what should have the number 2 spot? And we put a lot of energy and time in figuring out which one made the most sense. But I think the game plan always was to address a bunch of different locations that needed a little TLC.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
I have just a nuts and bolts thing. You don't anticipate any holdups through the DOT project coming up this spring? It's on track to start at a specific time in the spring, 2016? So,
Yes.
okay.
I don't like ever saying you don't anticipate any problems with the DOT, but at this point, we do not anticipate any problems with the DOT. They are on schedule, and Russin is constantly working with them to keep them on schedule.
Okay. Good.
Also, as you see, that they've really jumped the gun in
Yeah.
that they had the contractor that did the sewer doing some of the road work for them, and they're moving the utility poles already, so
That saved
hopefully
us
it moves
over
quickly.
like 7 months of time because
Yeah,
of that.
I was pleasantly surprised when they started doing the utility
Yeah.
work early on that.
Right.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, and I am last here to speak, and everyone has congratulated the committee, and I have to do the same. I want to do the same. We thank you very much for all the work you've done so far, but there's much more to do, as we know, and look forward to that. And I did make a few comments in my before the proclamation to Jeff, and thanking him for his work on the committee. And I think the word legacy is a great word, Meredith, to bring, you know, to this, and John, that, you know, this, you're going to see this, Jeff, long after your time on the council, and I thank you so much for that. I clearly remember sitting here and having you talk about this here at the council, and it was kind of now what are we going to do about that, and how can we make this happen, and what can we do, and how can we make sure that it's this council initiative, and we don't step on other toes, and we want to make sure, because this is really an important piece to have a vision and to not to do a mishmash, I'll use that word, of development, but how are we going to plan our future for the town? And so that was really a visionary thought on your part, and here we are, and I look forward to moving forward with it and hope you keep looking over our shoulders and say, hey, what are you doing? So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And certainly to the staff.
Yeah,
We know
thank
that,
you.
but-
Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
Should I do that right now?
Yes, do that now.
Before Rose and the committee leaves, I just wanted to mention, I was going to mention it in my manager's report, but just before, Rose has won a large award, and it's a CEDAS award, and CEDAS is the Connecticut Economic Development Association, and it's an organization over 300 economic development professionals committed to advancing the practice of economic development within the state of Connecticut. And she's going to be recognized tomorrow night, and she has won the President's Award for us. And what that is Rose is being recognized for her work chairing the CEDAS Programs Committee, which offered several well-attended and well-received events this year, as well as her dynamic leadership and economic development for the town of Farmington. So it's the President's Award, and she's being recognized, and Farmington is very lucky to have her and very proud, and we thank you very much.
Congratulations. Okay. D, public hearing none. New items. At this time, I'd ask for any public comment. Please state your name and your address, and we have a 5-minute time for public comment. So please come up to the podium if you'd like to address the council. Okay. Reading of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the November 10, 2015 regular town council meeting.
Second?
Any corrections or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Communications. Kathy.
You just have the one that was in your packet from a resident dealing with political signs.
And I also have a letter that I did make copies of, and I did get an email for it, but I made copies so each of you would have this, and I'm going to enter it into the record from Tom and Marcia Zip. So you'll all get a copy of this, okay? Okay, let's see. Report of committees, Yukon. We've had no meetings since October 30th. Land acquisition.
Nothing to report.
Green efforts.
We won't meet again until January.
Joint Town of Farmington, City of Hartford.
Nothing new to report from Hartford.
Okay, Bike Committee.
We're meeting this Thursday.
Gateway Committee.
We also are meeting Thursday at 5 p.m. here, and this is a very important meeting because we're going to look at approving an RFP for Phase 2, which is still up on the board here. And our town staff has worked hard to put together a very comprehensive RFP for Phase 2, and I hope we have a fair amount of public comments to help us shape, as the public has done, our mission going forward.
Thank you. Webpage study, webpage subcommittee.
We've received what I'll call preliminary final design, and we're in the process of making our comments on that. So we should have a final design shortly. And I would say there's more to come in the new year. But, we've met with all the staff. They've provided their feedback. So really now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, nitpicking and picking out colors and things like that. So we don't have a meeting on the books yet, but we'll have one in the new year, and from there we should see some good progress.
Thank you. Okay. Report of the council chair and liaisons. Chair report. I just want to report that we had a Farmington Valley Collaborative meeting on December 3rd, which Kathy and I attended. And we had some discussion about going actually to the YMCA in Granby and talking to WISE about collaborating on what kinds of things we could serve communities on through YMCA's. The Collaborative is a group of towns in the area, in the regional area, Granby, East Granby, Barkhamsted, Canton, Collinsville, all around the area, about, 8 or 10 towns, in case you didn't know. One of the main discussions, of course, was the budget. And we had our representatives there, and they were talking about the budget and, in fact, about the 8th and 9th, and today and tomorrow, hopefully finishing. And they really didn't have a lot of information as far as what they thought would happen, other than that they were working together. And we had one of the representatives, we had both Republican and Democrat representatives there that were part of a coalition working together to move things forward at the state level. So it was very informative and for what they were trying to work toward, and we'll find out today and tomorrow. So, okay, Board of Education Liaison.
The Board of Education met last night, and it was their last regular meeting of the year, so they had a short reception for the outgoing members who are excuse me, Bernie Erickson, Jean Barron, and Mary Grace Reed, and read proclamations for them. They had the school calendar was on the agenda to vote, but however they tabled it because apparently there's a new mandate for some more PD time that's required for the teachers, and they wanted to give an opportunity to the parents to come out at their next meeting and provide any feedback that they may have in trying to fit those days into the calendar. So parents, you're encouraged to attend the next Board of Ed meeting. I don't have the exact date of that, but they will be going over the calendar. There's some minor changes, and as you said earlier,
you never know what can happen.
You never know what can happen with calendar changes, so I encourage you to look into that. They also have scheduled a special board meeting for tomorrow night to go over the M&J contract for the bus. However, it will just be an executive session, so Ted, don't go out there. So, anyway, that's it.
Okay, thanks, John. UVIA.
Saturday was the Jingle Bell Jubilee. It was beautiful weather. It was very well attended. Tunx's Hose chaperoned Santa Claus, provided hot chocolate. Farmington Motorsports, other businesses provided refreshments. Union School PTO was involved. It was just a great event, and it was, for the most part, outdoors, which was fabulous.
Great. Thank you. TPZ.
Last night at TPZ, there was a informal discussion on the new owners of the Polo Grounds.
Oh.
And they came to the board last night to give them some of their ideas, suggestions, what they might like to do with that property through some fundraising events down there, through some of the other organizations that they help raise funds for. So it was a positive discussion between the Pizzuto Corporation and TPZ, and there's probably going to be some really nice events coming up, probably sometime in the near future happening down there. And they want to work cooperatively with the town of Farmington on anything that's going on down there. So it was just, I thought, a good step forward with the new owners of that property meeting with the town for future happenings down there.
That's great to hear that they came and talked to them. Great.
That's it.
Thank you. WPCA.
WPCA meets tomorrow evening, and there are 2 items on our agenda still to come that deal with WPCA. I believe we have an appointment and a bid award, so we'll get to those in a bit.
Thanks. EDC.
Nothing to report.
Human Relations Commission.
Nothing to report.
Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce will have their business after hours tomorrow night and their regular board meeting. It has moved from the Homewood Suites to the Hampton Inn and Suites on Route 6, and that will start at 5:30.
Okay. Any other liaison reports? Report of the town manager, Kathy?
You have the written report in front of you. Just some FYIs that our social service department is very busy during this holiday season, so I just gave an update. They've been partnering with the police department and some of our community other organizations. Also, in October, they had a senior vendor fair, which was a great fair at the senior center and the community center, where 40 vendors participated, and there was over 200 seniors that visited the senior center. So I heard that it was a very good event. So they're very busy during this time of the year, being very active. The other item that I wanted to mention was that we did sell a debt issue on November 10th. The town sold $2,100,000 in general obligation bonds. The bonds were rated AAA by Moody's, which is great news for us. They were issued for a term of 15 years and were offered at a competitive bid basis. The town received 6 bids with true interest cost ranging from a low of 2.14 to a high of 2.59. The winning bid was 2.14. The true interest cost of 2.14 was very good, considering that the 10-year U.S. Treasury note, the benchmark that we measure against, traded at 2.34 on the same day. So we did very well with that, and I thank Joe and his staff for the bond issue. But one of the things that I did want to mention is that the Moody's report, we do get a full report every time we issue debt, and it was very positive about the town, especially regarding our fund balance practices, our formal fiscal policies, but they did express caution in the report regarding the impending increase in the town's debt burden due to the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. While they felt the town could absorb the increase, they did express concern that this project, along with projected future borrowings, may push the town's annual debt service above the 10% of the annual general fund expenditure, which is not what our policy states. So they indicated that they would be monitoring this going forward to determine if the town can stay within its formal debt policy. I think that's a significant statement that they put in the debt. We have to, I think, consider that strongly. As you all remember, and we'll talk about it into the coming year when we do the strategic plans and things of that nature, that we do have a considerable amount of debt going off our debt. We've planned it over the next couple of years. But until that debt goes off, I think we really have to look at what we're bonding. We're going to be approving a $57 million project tonight. So, again, they had very positive things to say about us, but I think it's important financially to take this seriously, and we'll talk about it, I think, in the first of the year when we do our strategic plans and our debt and things of that nature. And Joe has given us a report on that, and he'll be planning on giving us another report during the first of the year soon when we're going over the strategic plan and how our debt falls off and everything like that. So that was,
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you. And I think we had that, I'm trying to remember now if it was June or July, when Joe, or maybe it was the fall, but came to us with a report about all of what we have bonded, what is everything in the time and all the dates. So I think after the first one, we do the strategic plan, we could have an update of that.
Yep.
And be looking ahead to what we're going to do with that in hand. you know,
Right.
So,
Exactly.
okay.
That's it for my report.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept Kathy's report?
Move to accept the town manager's report.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Can I just say that?
Oh, yeah.
2.14% for 15 years is phenomenal. So congratulations, Joe and Kathy. That's, given where the T-bill is at 234, that's incredible.
Thank you.
Appointments. Okay, go ahead.
Go
Jim.
ahead. Agenda item L7, I move that Kevin Ray be appointed to the Water Pollution Control Authority to fill the balance of a 5-year term beginning immediately and ending September 30, 2019.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Item L13, I move that Ron Bernard be appointed to the Economic Development Commission for a 2-year term beginning immediately and ending September 30, 2017.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Item L19, I move that Ed Leary be appointed to the Retirement Board for a 2-year term beginning immediately and ending January of 2018.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Item L21, I move that Robert Brochure be appointed to the Retirement Board for a 2-year term beginning immediately and ending January of 2018.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Item L22, I move that Joan Valente be appointed to the Retirement Board for a 2-year term beginning immediately and ending in January of 2018.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Finally, item L23, I move that Doug Clark be appointed to the Retirement Board for a 2-year term beginning immediately and ending January of 2018.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Any old business? New business? Number one, N1.
Madam Chair, I move that the council accept the Farmington Center study report presented earlier.
Second.
Any other questions, or Jeff, do you want to add anything?
No, I'll turn it over to Kathy since she hasn't spoken on it yet, but unless you have anything to add.
No, I think that this is, the report is attached. I think that the summary, and with our background, and I'm looking forward to our next steps and our phase 2.
Yeah, and incidentally, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but listed on the agenda item N1 are some of the other areas that we actually talked about. But as Amy pointed out, chose the Gateway area because there was so much going on with the DOT. And there were several, in addition to the DOT, there were several other TPZ applications kicking around over there.
The Preservation Now issues came up at the same time,
Right,
too.
yep, that's correct.
So that's it.
Okay.
Just one minor thing. It indicates in the write-up that there are 8 areas in town. There are 7 areas listed.
7. Thanks, John.
Anything else?
When you preface that by something minor, I was like, oh, here we go. It really was minor.
It was minor.
There's a dash.
Good catch, John. Good catch.
There's a dash in one of them? So there are 8?
1, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 if you count the 4 and the 3, right? Well, but the gateways, that's not really 1, so I think it is probably
They're
7.
subsections of
Yes,
4, actually.
Yeah, so 7.
Yes.
We'll take it.
Okay, good. With that correction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, great. Wonderful work. Okay, N2.
I move to award bid number 511-45-001 entitled Comprehensive Water Pollution Control Facility Upgrade Project to C.H. Nickerson and Company, Inc. of Torrington, Connecticut at a cost of $57,480,600.
Second.
Kathy.
As we discussed it last month, the purpose of this bid is to award the contract for the upgrade of the water pollution control facility. Bids were solicited in July and opened on October 8th. The town received 4 bids, with C.H. Nickerson Company submitting the lowest reasonable bid at $57,480,600. The bid amount exceeds the borrowing authorization by $240,600. The Water Pollution Control Authority reviewed the bids at their meeting on November 4th and voted to recommend to the Town Council that the bid be awarded to C.H. Nickerson. The authority also voted to fund the difference between the amount of the contract and the borrowing authorization from their capital reserve account. In addition, the authority voted to fund the project's contingency and the engineer's contract oversight cost for this year's and future years' capital budgets. This bid was also submitted to the State Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, the DEP, for review, and it's required by the Clean Water Fund. The DEP today approved the contract award to C.H. Nickerson as recommended by the town. And also, we did receive our funding that we haven't received it yet, but approval with the grant funding. And we've received good news that the amount that we thought we were going to receive is a little bit more, so that's positive too. So we got notification of that today. So it's all different areas of the bid and what's going to be accepted and what's not going to be accepted. So we are now, there's more items in our bid document that that's going to be eligible for grant funding. So we're happy about that. Finally, our bond council has reviewed the proposed funding on the project, and it's agreed that it's appropriate. So I did include the bid document, the summary sheet behind. C.H. Nickerson Company is a very, very good company that is highly recommended. The town staff, the water pollution control, the finance people, myself, all feel comfortable that this is a good bid and that we should go forward with it. It is over what we thought the price would be, but we are going to be doing some more value engineering to it to try to get the price down a little bit. One of the things that's, because it's such a big, large bid, is that the company, C.H. Nickerson, they give you the summary sheet, but they don't give you the backup. It's like 150 pages, and everything is valued engineered. And when we award the contract to them, we're going to go through it in detail and figure, where we were off a little bit in the price and to try to get some savings as we go along. So that's one thing that we are going to do. And I think it's been a very good process, and if our consultants are here, Russ is here, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Amy?
Just a sort of snapshot answer. I know when you presented earlier in the year, you gave us sort of a rough number of what this will in the end cost to Farmington, because as you said, there have been grants. Grants have been better than we anticipated, but the cost is higher than we anticipated, and then there are many towns who will be contributing.
Yep.
So as of now, based on the data you have in front of you, how much do you anticipate the cost will be to Farmington before the interest payments that we're going to be paying?
Joe, do you have that number? The bid is around, this bid came in about 10% higher than
Right.
what we said. So so I think, Joe, you have it, I think, in front of you.
When all said and done, based on our current projection, the bid would probably, the cost of Farmington is probably about $2.8 million higher than what it is right now.
So the overall cost with all of the grants and everything,
All the grants, all the funding, everything else.
so the final number would be what?
Instead of $32 million, Farmington would be 35.
Okay.
Just under 35.
Right.
But that, again, those are preliminary.
And I keep on trying to stress that it is fluid because,
No, I understand
again,
that.
when we go through it, and because our costs are higher, the other towns pay more too.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we are going to look for savings in it because of the fact that we're not 100% sure why we're off by 10% or 15%. So when we open up all the documents, we have to look at that to make sure that what we bid out and what the company has proposals is at the same. So there's still, I'm confident that we're going to find some savings too.
But is there any anticipation that it's going to go up, or we're
No.
hoping it goes
Oh,
down?
no, down.
This is our ceiling, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Other questions?
This was the low bid.
Yeah.
Of the four.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's important to state that.
Yeah.
Yeah, by a little over $2 million.
So I would ask that just as the process moves forward, that you just keep us updated on what it is that you find.
Yep.
And if in fact there's, it could be something costs $3 instead of $2, now, the materials or something you could be finding that you can't see it because it's 150 pages, to just keep us updated on what it is.
Yep.
Even though the grants are more, it certainly would be nice to be coming off of the 52 instead of 57, but we
Exactly.
certainly understand, and with the bids, as Jeff said, all coming in and this being the lowest one, clearly that's, where we're going, so.
Right, and that will be, again, part of our strategic plan, as it has been one of the goals, and we'll be updating you on a regular basis as the project goes on. And it's a very, very, as you know, a really very large project that's going to be taking place and up at the treatment plant. It's the largest project the town's ever taken on, so we'll be giving you updates often, and there'll be project committee meetings and different things that go along as the project takes place.
One other question, Joe. Is there any danger that our interest will go up? I mean, everything you read is that the Fed will likely raise interest rates. Will we have any impact, or do we have a locked-in number because of the grants?
The long-term financing, the 20-year financing would be locked in at 2%. That's the Clean Water Fund. The short-term interest rates will go up in a couple, next week the rates will probably go up, and depending upon how they go up over the next 2 years, how the Fed does it, we'll probably see, we're still going to see under, half a percent interest on the short-term stuff. So it'll be marginal or minimal increases in fact. In the short term, the long term is locked in at the 2%.
When does the 2% kick in?
About 6 months after the end of the project. So the project completes in 2019, probably somewhere either either some point in late 2019 or early 2020.
So about a 2-3 year exposure.
Yeah. But that, again, those are federally subsidized, or actually they're state subsidized bonds, and it's a commitment for 2%. That's the whole idea. The Clean Water Fund is a 2% loan program.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Just a comment. I know we're voting on a $57 million expenditure, but it's important for the public to know that we've been really kept up to date on this. And although there hasn't been a lot of discussion tonight as we vote, I think the town staff has done a great job of giving us the numerical impact, the data, the construction schedule, the efforts of the engineering department to do as much of this in-house as possible. So anybody looking at what we're doing tonight should not think that we're haphazardly just passing a $57 motion. We've gotten a lot of information on this over the past 2 years, and I'm comfortable voting on it.
Well said. Okay, all those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And 3.
And 3, I move to execute an agreement with the engineering firm Wright Pierce of Middletown, Connecticut, to provide professional engineering and inspection services during the construction phase of the Farmington wastewater treatment plant upgrade project in the amount of $3,369,721. Funds for the contract will be taken from the WPCA's capital improvement projects entitled Plant Design and Upgrade Account.
Second.
This is for our professional firm, Wright Pierce, who's been with us from the beginning for the construction administration and the inspection service necessary as part of the upgrade of the facility. So they will be hands-on at our facility, doing reports, being there, inspecting, and we also obviously in conjunction with our town staff, but they are going to be our full-time people doing this for us. So. And Wright Pierce has worked with us throughout the project. The Water Pollution Control has approved their contract.
Any questions?
One question. This money, I understand, is being taken out of the capital improvement funds that WPCA has already. Is this also a shared expense?
Yes.
All right.
It's a shared expense, and also we'll have some grant reimbursements.
Okay. So again, this total is what the total contract will cost,
Total contract, right.
but it'll be less than that for the town. Okay, thank you.
This is maximum.
I have a question. Was this put out to bid?
Was this put out to bid, Russ?
May I?
Yep.
Under the state's Clean Water Fund requirements for...
Oh, can you just introduce yourself and speak at the thing,
Yeah,
please?
come up to the podium.
Hi, my name is Chris Pierce. I'm the project manager for Wright Pierce. And under the state's Clean Water Fund rules for procuring engineering services, they require you to go through what's called a quality-based selection system. So when this project was advertised, it was put out publicly to engineering firms to submit qualifications. You're not allowed to ask for price at that point. The requirement is you review the qualifications of all the submittals, you shortlist, you then interview the top 3 or 4 firms based on those submittals. You rank those firms, and then you begin negotiations with the top-ranked firm. So that's how we were selected to do this work. So it's not a price proposal, but it's to maintain the eligibility for getting the Clean Water Fund.
And the state conducts that process, or
No, the town conducts
Okay.
that. So the WPCA put together an interview panel. They reviewed all the submittals and did the interviews.
Thank you.
It's our request for qualifications, but that's also required by the state, too.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. N4.
I move to approve a resolution related to emergency medical services.
Second?
In front of you in your packet is a resolution, and what I'm asking that the council authorize me is to formulate and submit a plan for alternative local emergency medical service. And this is, we're dealing with the ambulance and the paramedic service. And as if you remember, I'm skipping around a little bit, but our goal 21, at which we've been talking about for the last couple of years, is that we wanted to petition to the state department so that we could go out to bid for our services, for ambulance service. So we have come a long way. As you remember, Mary Ellen was really on the forefront of having the law changed. And the law has been changed, and now there's a process in place about how you have to go about this. And it's still somewhat convoluted because it's chicken or the egg in some ways, but what has happened is that we went out to bid, and we are recommending that we sign a 3-year contract with AMR for 2 24-hour paramedic level ambulances. And that would be not using Yukon anymore. They bid on it, and we would be going to AMR. The reason why they're recommending this is, one, is that we're getting a better service through AMR, which we're going to be getting 2 24-hour paramedic level services, and we're not going to be paying a subsidy, where Yukon we pay a subsidy to it. We cannot just give AMR, sign the contract with them, because Yukon has the PSA for it, and that's what the law is. That right now what we're asking you to do is allow me to submit a plan to the Department of Public Health to reassign our PSAs. Once that's the plan, and then the second thing is to submit a petition for the reassignment of the PSAs. And again, just a history, we have two PSAs right now. Yukon holds one PSA for paramedic services, and AMR holds another PSA, which is the transport, which is the ambulance service. We would like to have now AMR do our paramedic and transport service, and that's what we went out to bid to try. That's our bid document. And AMR has come up with the best contract, which would be a 3-year contract for 2 24-hour paramedic level services at no subsidy to the town. So we're not, the next step in this would be that Mary Ellen and the fire service has already come up with our plan. So that's number one. But then we have to submit a petition, and we have to go to the public health, and it's it's a big process, and you have to put your case on to be able to get the PSA, and that's where we are. So if we get that, which we hope to, then we would then sign a contract with AMR. So we went out to bid first to show that we have a plan, we have that this is how it would work. Then you have to go back to the state and say, this is the plan, this is how it would work. So I don't know if I've made that clear, if you have any questions. I know it's sort of complicated, but.
I just want
John.
to make some comments.
Yeah.
First, I want to thank Mary Ellen, who's here tonight, for all your hard work. I mean, you worked not only on behalf of the town of Farmington, but on behalf of 169 towns in the state of Connecticut. So thank you very much for that. We're seeing the fruits of her efforts with this. You know, this is actually a really big deal here. We've basically gone from being under the iron fist of a monopoly to having a little bit of free will. I know there's still work to do, but I mean, immediately in this first, proposal that we're getting more ambulance, better ambulance service, and saving $42,000 right off the top, and this is just the beginning. So, again, it's things like this that really go a long way, giving control to the towns, and having our fate in our own hands, which are very capable, our own very capable hands. So, I don't look at this lightly. This is a good start to good things. So, again, thank you very much, and obviously I support what we're doing tonight.
Okay, other comments?
I'll just throw out there too, I'll echo John, Mary Ellen, Kathy, your whole staff for pulling this off. This was a remarkable event to have happen. Thanks to Russ, Rich, and Tom for also helping Mary Ellen achieve this and make this. This is a big move for the town of Farmington to do this, and they put a lot of effort into it, and I think it will work very well.
This required a change in legislation at the Connecticut General Assembly.
It did.
And given the financial wherewithal of the ambulance providers to fight that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
The lobbying efforts that went into that behind the scenes from the ambulance providers were probably very well funded. So congratulations on this, and this really does pave the way for the residents to get the best possible ambulance and paramedic service, while at the same time saving the taxpayers money, because as I understand it, we pay for the service through UConn. UConn doesn't necessarily bill, even though they could, for that service. AMR bills, and thus there's no cost to the town. So this is definitely the way to go.
And it's, again, hopefully, it's a 3-year contract, but just having control, like John, you said, in our hands, that, we don't have to, we can evaluate as time goes on, we can make changes, we can do what we want. And that's what we've asked, that's what we started this whole conversation years ago, was just that we wanted to go out to bid to see what was out there and what was available and what was the best service, and they told us that we were not allowed to do that. So hopefully it's not over yet. This public health and going to petition is not easy. You have to, there's a lot to go to it, but I think we have a good case, and we're going to keep on moving forward.
Okay, any other? Okay, and I just, again, being last, I can echo what everybody said, but I was up there during some of that time at the legislature, and, I mean, it's not an easy task at all. As you said, Jeff, the other groups, I'm sure, were very well-funded and had very good representation up there to make their case. And I want to thank all of you, Mary Ellen, of course, and all of those involved, all the chiefs, for all your hard work. I mean, this was day in and day out of being up there and getting your voice heard, getting your voice heard, and that doesn't take, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of hard work and a lot of working together to get that to happen. So I just can't say enough either. It's, as Jeff said, it's what's best for the town service-wise and financially. So it's a win-win all around. And I have full confidence you're going to move right forward with this. So, thank you. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, N5.
Madam Chair, I move that the town council approve the following property tax refunds totaling $6,955.06 as set forth on agenda item N5.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Okay. Oh, so we need a motion for executive session.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I move that the town council adjourn into executive session, that we adjourn the meeting to executive session as permitted by Connecticut General Statutes 1-225A for the following purposes as allowed by Section 1-206, that is, discussion of the selection of a site or the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate by a political subdivision of the state when publicity regarding such site, lease, sale, purchase, or construction would cause a likelihood of increased price until such time as all the property has been acquired, or all proceedings or transactions concerning same have been terminated or abandoned, and that attendance in the executive session shall be limited to members of the town council, the town manager, and Bill Wadsworth at 8:55 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?